Hello, everyone. Today we will learn English by listening to this story. It's not just a story, it's a journey. A story about something we all face, but few understand. Laziness. And the secret to defeating it. Let me take you back to where it all began. I used to live inside my own head. Not in a dreamy, creative way, but in the kind of way where I imagined everything and did nothing. I'd lie in bed and think, I should exercise. I should apply for that job. I should clean this room. And then I'd just scroll on my phone, watching people live their lives while I watched mine pass by. Every morning was a battle. Not with the world but with myself. And I was losing. Then came the night I hit rock bottom. I remember it clearly. It was 2:17 a.m. My phone battery was dead. And I was lying in a room that smelled like dirty clothes, staring at the ceiling, feeling empty. My heart wasn't broken. My body wasn't sick. But something inside me felt lost. And that's when I whispered, I don't want to live like this anymore. The next day, I didn't become a new person. I didn't jump out of bed or make a vision board. But I did something small. I left the house. Just to get air. To escape that room full of failure. And I walked aimlessly until I reached the local library. Not because I wanted to read, but because it had air conditioning and no expectations. That's where I met him. He was an older man with silver hair, pushing a mop across the marble floor. He hummed while he worked, some kind of old tune I didn't recognize. I sat near the window, trying to disappear. But after a while, he came over. You all right? He asked without stopping his work. I nodded. Lied. Yeah. He didn't believe me. Just so you know, the quiet ones always carry the heaviest weight. I looked up at him. What do you mean? He smiled gently. You're not lazy. You're just stuck. Those words hit me like thunder. What do you mean stuck? He leaned on his mop and said, Laziness isn't your enemy. It's a symptom. I frowned. Symptom of what? He looked at me in a way that made me feel completely seen. Fear. Confusion. Pain. Maybe even hopelessness. People don't avoid work because they're lazy. They avoid it because they're scared. Because they don't believe in themselves. Because they've forgotten how to try. My chest tightened. Was that me? He walked away, leaving me with one sentence. If you want to beat laziness, stop fighting yourself. I kept going back to the library every day after that. Not to read, but to listen. The janitor, his name was Rafiq, became my unexpected teacher. Every day, between wiping tables and refilling soap dispensers, he dropped little truths. You need a system, not motivation. Start small. Win tiny battles. That's how warriors are made. Make promises to yourself, and keep them. That's how you build self-trust. It wasn't therapy. It wasn't school. It was real. And something inside me began to shift. I started doing one thing a day. Just one. Day 1. Make my bed. Day 2. Brush my teeth before noon. Day 3. Take a walk for 10 minutes. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel productive. But I felt awake. Like a door had opened. I kept showing up at the library, and Rafiq kept noticing. You're moving, he said one day, grinning. Slow, but forward. That became my new mantra. Slow, but forward. But just when I thought things were getting better, life tested me. One morning, I got an email. A reply from a graphic design internship I had applied to 6 months ago and forgotten. They wanted to interview me. Tomorrow. At first I was excited. I even smiled. Then, the fear returned. That familiar voice in my head. You're not good enough. They'll laugh at your portfolio. You'll mess it up like everything else. That evening, I went to the library. Rafiq wasn't there. I sat alone, hands trembling, trying to decide. Do I go to the interview? Or do I run? He returned just before closing time. I rushed up to him, panicking. They want to interview me. He smiled. That's great. No, it's terrible. I'm not ready. I haven't done anything real. I'm not like those talented people online. He held up a hand. Stop. I froze. You're letting fear dress up as laziness again. He leaned closer. You're ready when you try. Not when you're perfect. The next morning, I showed up at the interview. I was sweating through my shirt. My voice cracked twice. But I told them the truth. I don't have experience. But I've been designing every day for the last month. And I want to get better. A week later, I got the job. You'd probably think this is the end of the story. That I got the internship, turned my life around, and never struggled again. But real life isn't a movie with neat endings. And laziness? It's not a monster you fight once and then celebrate your victory. No. Laziness is more like a shadow. It follows you. It whispers when you're tired, when you feel alone, when you doubt yourself. You don't defeat it in one big battle. You learn how it works. You learn what it hides behind. And then you figure out how to live with it. How to keep moving, even when it's still there. That's the truth no one tells you. I stayed at that internship for 3 months. 3 long, challenging, sometimes exciting months. At first, I felt like an imposter. Like someone would come in and say, "You don't belong here." But no one did. In fact, they started trusting me, giving me real tasks, real projects. And then, they offered me a full-time position. My first real job. I said yes. A few months later, I started getting freelance requests from people who saw my work online. And eventually, I launched my own small business. A design studio. Just me, a laptop, a dream. And a memory of who I used to be. But the biggest change wasn't on my resume. It wasn't the money or the clients. It was the way I looked in the mirror. I began to trust myself again. Not because I became some unstoppable machine of motivation, but because I finally understood something that changed everything. Laziness isn't what we think it is. It's not about being weak. It's not about being useless. It's about fear. Fear pretending to be comfort. Fear that disguises itself as, "I'll do it later." Fear that tells you staying still is safer than failing. And the secret to beating that fear? It's not force. It's kindness. Kindness to yourself on the days when nothing goes right. When your to-do list is untouched. When you oversleep and feel like a failure. When you look around and all you see is mess and regret. Those are the moments that matter most. Because anyone can be kind to themselves when they're winning. But it takes real courage to be kind to yourself when you feel lost. Yes. You'll break your streak. You'll miss a day. You'll fall back into old habits. You will. But that's not failure. What matters is what you do next. Even if you get back up one day later. Even if you move slower than before. Even if your hands shake and your voice cracks. If you keep going, even just a little bit, you're still winning. Because the real enemy isn't your body lying in bed. It's not the undone tasks or the empty notebooks. It's that cruel voice in your head that says, "You're worthless. You'll never change. You're just lazy." Shut that voice down. Look in the mirror and say, "I'm not lazy. I'm learning." And that counts. Now, my days don't look perfect. They're messy. Some mornings, I wake up early and feel proud. Some mornings, I snooze the alarm 5 times and spill coffee on my shirt. Some days, I finish everything on my list. Other days I just survive.